Was all right. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this week's edition of LinkedIn Live, Cannabis Investing with Big Rock. My name is Guillermo Bravo, and I'm the Chief Evangelist at MediaGel. MediaGel is a laser-focused dispensary advertising and marketing agency focused on driving compliant, scalable, and sustainable growth by enabling highly regulated businesses to directly connect with their consumers through our multi-touch attribution model, unlocking every step of the buyer's journey. Today, we're joined by Joyce Cenali with Big Rock. Welcome to LinkedIn Live.
Oh no. I couldn't hear you. I can't hear you.
No worries. I was on mute.
Oh, there we
go. Joyce, do you mind giving me a little background on what you do in the cannabis industry and your role?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm involved with a group called Big Rock Partners. We are a multifamily office and consulting firm. So essentially, we touch the industry on the investment and kind of financial services side. But in addition to that, we operate a farm project. So I'm speaking to you from West Petaluma. We've actually moved our corporate office, which used to be in downtown San Francisco, as you know, to West Petaluma. So my days are, not as much always in front of the computer as I'm often in the field now, which is really, really fun. So many of us in cannabis are stuck behind computer screens and need to get back out into the nature of the plant. So I'm blessed to be able to have that dichotomy in my day. But yeah, so Big Rock has been investing in the cannabis space since 2016. I personally have been active in the space since 2012. I had a cultivation project, an Emerald Cup winning cultivation project from 2012 to 2016. I co-chaired Sonoma County's Women Grow chapter for some time, and then joined forces with Big Rock. And we've deployed into mostly California-based operations. We tend to focus on the plant. We do have some ancillary holdings, but for the most part, we're really passionate about forwarding innovations and new experiences for consumers born from this plant. And in terms of what we are trying to forward with our farm project, we have an overlap with hospitality, trying to really kind of bring out a medium where, just as with wine, you pair with food, we are looking to pair, cannabis with food. So we really care about, bringing consumers the best, most efficacious, most flavorful, most potent, most, kind of original cannabis that you can find. So we tend to work with a lot of companies that are doing both, cultivation, but also, formulating new mediums. So we work with a lot of companies that touch beverages and, edibles and, form factors that are a little bit different from the sort of, old school smokables.
Wonderful. And as far as your day, you're in the farm, you're looking at investment and opportunities, you're growing your investment companies. What's your favorite part of the day?
Yeah, honestly, I love meeting with people that are trying to evolve something that, allows me to optimize my day. And, on the agriculture side, that looks really, really different than it did on kind of the financial services side. But, the applications for kind of anything in this industry often have, a lot of value outside of the industry. So I guess the most exciting parts of my day are being able to, I'm COO of this project, and we have just hired a sales team. And prior to that, myself and my partner, Mike, and, some of the teammates that were otherwise on the farm team or the business development side were kind of helping, grow this project. So I've been able to really get very much in the weeds, so to speak, by interacting with retailers, interacting with, supply chain partners on the processing and distribution side. And just kind of, really understanding what the buyers and the bud tenders are experiencing, as well as, kind of the bulk market, is really, really helpful. I think, every firm really needs to have an operating manager. It's kind of the first thing that I look for when I'm looking to share a cap table, with another party. And I think the value that, us and certain other firms are kind of moving in the operating businesses direction. It's a really unique way to unlock, new opportunities. So I enjoy that a lot. And I would say that the most fun in my day is actually being in the garden with the flowers,
And getting your hands dirty, and
getting really sticky. Really sticky, so that it's hard for me to like punch on a computer screen. That's like, if that happens, I know my day is good.
That's awesome. I'm jealous of you. Well, I'll see you next week when we come out to
you
Sonoma
will.
Hills Farms.
We'll get your hands all trichomy.
Oh yeah, let's do it. And I know you make your rounds around different retail shops. Like, what are you seeing as far as trends in the industry right now?
Totally. So, I think a lot of us were really hopeful for like an artisan kind of craft movement. And I do still think there's light at the end of the tunnel there, but it's been really, really rough for a lot of groups that, are probably, smaller in nature, and really the single state operators and those that have, I guess, vertical integration, at least on the kind of cultivation to manufacturing side, really do have a big amount of the shelf allocation. That said, and so at the beginning of 2018, when the legal market started, I think we kind of abandoned a lot of the medical and wellness focused products, and we saw a lot of saturation around tinctures and certain products that maybe the recreational focused groups weren't going to be able to pull off with, kind of a medical focus. So now, even though, some of the craft players and the smaller businesses are having a harder time, I am starting to see on the edible side, everything historically has been infused with distillate, which is essentially just, super isolated THC in a product. And we really care about the presentation of the entire plant matter. And I think that's what brings more efficacy that does lean wellness. So I'm starting to see a trend towards, I've talked to a lot of retailers in the last couple of weeks, actually, and live rosin or hash infused, edibles have gone from probably like 2 to 3% market share to like 20% of what people are purchasing. And, you see big brands like Kiva coming out with, live rosin strains. And I think the trend will continue. Well, you'll start to see many more. Space Gem just came out with something. Plus just did a really cool special limited release with biscotti that's hash infused. I think Level just came out with hash tabs instead of just pro tabs. So that's exciting because, the education for the consumer shouldn't just be about, getting high. It should be about how it kind of, adds value to our day overall and what it can do to help us with our, health care and our, nutritional, focus. And so that's one exciting thing.
Nice. And as far as demographics, like what do you see as a kind of an emerging customer group, over the last few years, and what do you see for the future?
Yeah, well, one thing I will say is at least half of the buyers that we interact with are under the age of 30. And that's a little disconcerting because they don't necessarily have a lot of the baggage that folks like myself and probably yourself and many of your clients carry into this. Makes us, I think, hardened, but also, sympathetic and, hopeful for, legacy players to have a space. And I think that a presentation on the shelves of, a diverse range of products is super appropriate and, more apropos with, traditional shopping experiences. So I'm a little bit concerned when I see, younger parties because they're going to be a little bit more tempted by kind of the discount orientation and like the value drive. So a lot of companies that I care a lot about have really seen that shiny toy and are derivating their, brand focus towards a value structure. And in the long run, I feel like the gap that's going to leave for, premium and more like, affluent focused consumer products is going to carve out more space for that. But in the short term, seeing a lot towards the sort of value shopper. And in terms of like, demographic approach, I think, that is, however, going to cut in a little bit into the folks that shop from the traditional market. So, that's a good thing. But at the end of the day, the change that needs to occur is we need to open retail in places where, there isn't a lot of access. So I'm really excited to see shops open in places like Redwood City. That's a new market that's going to come online. They're going to approve, I think, 12 retail licenses. Places like that, places like, outskirts of Sacramento, outskirts of Redding, and places where there are populations that, probably will consume, but that just haven't, turned on yet. So I feel like that's going to bring in, we can talk about consumers in terms of like age, demographic, gender, but regionally, that's really kind of what we focus on here in California. Just making more people have access to it is really important.
Yeah, and then being from Sonoma, it's the capital of wine, weed, and beer.
Yeah.
Like how have you seen kind of the intersection of the three industries evolve, with cannabis coming in aggressively?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think in terms of like the infrastructure that exists and the like staffing and solutions, it's a good place to be able to find, the type of labor that we need that is, seasonal. There's some good staffing companies that work across, those industries and that are, finding opportunities in cannabis. So really good talent base, to bring out, high quality product. A little more expensive to operate here, but that's okay. And then in terms of like how the consumers and I guess how the, sort of surrounding business mindset, it's been a very friction filled path. We have, known of and have actually had inbounds from a number of family wineries that are looking to convert some portion of their land towards cannabis use. There have definitely been some players that have come online that have never cultivated cannabis before that, have a history in the wine industry. And that's, I guess the open market, it's open for everybody, but I do think that, from I guess, supporting the historic view, my hope is that, all of those players do try and bring in the talent around them, because a lot of people have been displaced by these laws. And those that have an opportunity to, from a capital and, land ownership, and they happen to have agriculture land, I would hope that they bring in legacy players that are being displaced to, work alongside them. I don't think that that's really happening so much as I'd like it to. We're certainly, able to provide jobs to people that, we definitely have a number of folks outside of the cannabis industry, but we have a number of folks that have been, very, very active and have really good experience in the space. So that's exciting. And then on the regulatory side, cannabis is not treated equally, even to wine. I mean, I think the big algorithm that people will often point to is like water and how much water it takes to, bring a pound to market or whatever. And when we really dial it down, if you look at drinking a glass of wine versus smoking a couple hits, or consuming a couple of milligrams, the per dose amount of water that goes into cannabis versus wine is like wine is probably 30 to 1. if you dial that out. I don't have the specific data point in front of me right now, but we used about 340,000 gallons for just under an acre of canopy for our cannabis. And then we had traditional produce and we have livestock. The neighbor across the road probably used 25 million gallons last year feeding his 600 head of cattle. So wine takes more water, dairy and the meat industry certainly takes more water, and traditional produce all takes more water. So that's a big, kind of educational point that's really lost on the wine folks. And when we start to get more data out, and because we have to report it. Most other industries don't have to report the amount of water use. So I personally put the information into the, California water supply system for our farm. And we're going to have data in 2 or 3 years now, comprehensive data to go and, compare that to what our wine neighbor is doing. And we're going to find that we're using way less water than they are. So once the actual facts start to come out and people start talking about just opinions that are not born from reality, I would hope that people start to open their eyes because the two are really well paired with each other. It's particularly hops. Hops is the closest native cousin to cannabis, and they're very good to grow next to each other. The only other thing I'd say about that is in terms of, where we're going from a branding perspective, California has taken steps to be the first in the nation to declare a cannabis appellations program. So our governor has had some busy days with this ridiculous recall that we just had, and unfortunately hasn't put as much focus on this space as we would like, and hopefully he will now be freed up to do so. But one real positive thing that he did do was he signed a law that basically puts in motion a cementation of cannabis appellations here in California, much like wine. So you have, certain regions that have gone really big, like Santa Barbara County and Yolo and Lake and stuff like that, which Santa Barbara is, I guess, a wine region, but the others really aren't. So I think that's going to be really important. It'll come out in 2022 with the actual defining information about how the appellations will be named and awarded. And we're certainly going to be on that path in Sonoma. And hopefully, that will bring out an opportunity for us to sit alongside our wine neighbors and say, hey, tourism, you want to bring more consumers to check out your winery. We want to bring consumers to check out our can of winery, or whatever the hell we're going to end up calling it. So we're really excited for that opportunity and to speak to, the terroir and the variable climates throughout the state, because California is the best place to grow cannabis, and it's known around the globe. And people don't want to come here and step into an indoor warehouse. They want to go experience cannabis in a natural, in-ground terroir, just as they do wine. So that's really exciting. And, we'll be ready for that. But, tourism has taken a long time to kind of find its footing with our regulators. And that's another thing that I would push onto them to try and move a little faster with it, because the industry is really hurting, and we need some help from regulators. We need more retail. We need, access to better taxation structures, and we need support with the surrounding. Once you get your license, you then go to the zoning department to build your infrastructure and blah, blah, blah. And the way that they approve tourism stuff, we just need things to move more swiftly.
Exactly. And, you brought up a lot of good points there. And, I'm interested in how you plan to increase your brand awareness to capture tourists, when they're visiting. I know that you have different experiential events that you're offering. Can you go into a little more detail on what really makes the brand unique?
Yeah, so we're building what we hope will be a globally known cannabis destination and brand. We have the great honor of employing Aaron Kiefer, who left the French Laundry to join us. So he grew vegetables for the best chefs in Napa and Sonoma at, Thomas Keller's outfit in Yountville. And he also had grown cannabis in an indoor facility for many years and during the Prop 215 days. So this is actually the first time he's growing cannabis outside. I've been growing cannabis outside for a while. So I'm very pleased that I think he's a true believer that the expression that comes from a plant that comes out of native soil is more robust than an indoor facility. You can get a lot of consistency and high, potency, but the expression of the plant in terms of terpenes and flavonoids is particularly profound in native soil. So our goal with, how we are going to interface with folks all over the world is to really go deep on the history of growing in Sonoma. We are on land that was originally settled by General Vallejo. We're the fourth owners. So the second owners were the Purvines. The matriarch of that family was named Mary Jane Purvine. Can't write this. It just writes itself. And then the Collings purchased it. Mr. Collings sold us the land and he still lives. Like I can see his trees from this conversation. He comes to the farm twice a day to say hello to us, which is really handy to basically when we dig in the dirt and we find some random archive of like this, vase or whatever, the stories that he can tell about this space are just invaluable. So we're going really, really deep on the history here and coupling that with a conversation about how we can procure genetics that work well alongside our produce garden and in community with chefs that we interact with. So our goal on the sort of influencer side would be to, convert chefs from all over the world to, start to experiment with, cannabinoids from flower born from this farm as they move through to an end product. So that's how we're going to interact. We've been really blessed we have a fantastic communications teammate, and we're going to be featured in a bunch of amazing, national and international press. But in addition to that, I think it comes down to authenticity. And, Aaron has committed his life to this. I've committed my life to it. My partner, Mike, and his family have committed their lives to it. And, everywhere we go, we're just, going to be stewards for this plant. And I think eventually that will resonate, in ways that, a point of sale purchase buy is not going to. So we're just trying to be, long-term thoughtful about this and not go too big too fast and sort of blow through the working capital that we've committed. So
I hear you. Well, kudos to everything you achieved. I've watched the evolution of Big Rock and Sonoma Hills Farms and everything that that you're doing. So I can't wait to visit the farm and enjoy some time with the cows and get in touch, get my hands dirty and sticky.
Yeah,
it's gonna be fun. Is there anything else you wanted to cover in regards to other investment opportunities and anything else that Big Rock is doing?
Yeah, so we took a little pause on investing, but we're going to start getting, active again. Some of the companies that we've collaborated with that I'm super excited about, we love Rose Delights. They're like a super high-end edible maker that do pairings, much as I described in terms of our garden. They actually source produce from the season and pair it with, cannabis in a live rosin press from the season. So they infuse with live rosin. I'm a big fan of, those that are kind of bringing together, growers from the traditional industry and giving them a means to actually find distribution and sales. And there have been some companies that have tried to do it and unfortunately haven't necessarily, succeeded there. But one that is Bear Extracts. They make Ursa and they make Wax on the concentrate side. They're going to start to come out with some really cool live rosin edibles and beverages. And, they're supporting many farmers in Humboldt to help them find a path to retail. So they're both, a very community driven organization, but they also, focus on solventless practices and, full spectrum practices of the plant. So super excited about those guys. And then I think e-commerce, e-commerce in general, and I'm sure that you guys at Media Gel have certain, partners that are really focused there, but retail has been really rough, and the rollout takes a really, really, really long time. If you get your license here, it's going to be minimum 18 months, but usually more like 36 months to open, whereas delivery services and e-commerce are a little bit easier to obtain. That said, the options that exist out there are essentially just another retailer for the brand. So I'm excited to start to see some disruption in that area where the brands can find a little bit more price integrity. And we can start to actually have people ask us all the time, what is your MSRP? And I just laugh at them. Like, that's hilarious, as if I'm going to tell a retailer how to price my product. Like, none of them listen. And I can't wait until the day when the retailer actually subscribes to what the brand thinks they should be sold for and gives them a fair price. And even the best retailers that try really hard to do that because of what their competitors are doing don't. So I think cannabis is still really focused on the bottom line for the investor or the founder or the party that is, looking to make their money, as opposed to what the consumer wants. And there are some companies, and many that we're involved with, that I do think are more focused on the consumer. And that's going to come down to price integrity across the entire supply chain, from retailer to brand to cultivator. And so those are kind of the companies that we're going to be, trying to hone in on. And hopefully the market will follow.
Yeah, I'm sure it will. I mean, I've seen this in Washington State when it first got started. It was a race to the bottom for retailers. Their margins just kept getting lower and lower. They're just all competing for the same customers, giving discounts, and the brands were, it's hard to maintain your brand image and kind of your authority if everyone is just making your products cheap, right? So it's like, how do you manage that in California now?
Yeah, I mean, we're just, for our brand, when you say you, I'm going to tell it in the lens of Sonoma Hills Farm. And we have a lot of investments that, the proprietors of those companies may have a difference of opinion with this. But for us specifically, we don't have outside forces that are sort of forcing us to hit certain, monthly revenue targets. So we're just not going to discount ourselves past the point of no return. We're going to focus on retailers that get the story, that, are passionate about, allowing for craft cannabis to have a seat at the table. I often say we're probably the last first craft. We're kind of, unfortunately, a lot of groups that were, smaller grow outfits, in certain parts of the triangle just aren't going to have an easy path forward in solidifying their own brand. They may have a path as a cultivator working alongside a group like Bear, but for us, having a brand that actually is front and center in the market, it's a rare, and, I feel honored to be a part of it. But for us, we're going to demand the price that we're going to demand. We may have to have a little bit of flexibility with that, but we're also just going to reject those that, price us down and they're not the right partners for us. So that's how we're handling it. Many of our other parties are, definitely going to be trying to, on the education side, we need to change things away from the potency conversation and the price per milligram to, the overall, value that the brand brings. And so, companies are going to be putting a lot of focus towards how they tell that story and sort of taking the eyeballs off of the, milligram cost. And there's a bunch of different ways to do that. But I think, early onset, a lot of things that are happening with, ingredient formulation to create consistent experiences for consumers. If you have a 5 milligram Pabst Blue Ribbon, beverage that you're drinking, it can get a little easier to have it be the same cost of a beer if it's just 5 milligrams. You don't need to sell that person 100 milligrams in an experience. So, Vertosa is a party that we work with that is powering a lot of really great beverages and edibles. And, so they've got a lot of scientific based backed, ingredient formulations that are powering some, traditional CPG, and then certain companies that are in cannabis that are trying to step into the beverage category. And so, that's going to bring in new consumers and also allow us to kind of have the conversation about, what the range and the diverse product set is that new consumers are going to be interested in. So everybody cuts it out a little bit differently, but our preference is generally to focus on parties that really, really care about price integrity, not just for themselves, but also for their partners.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm right there with you. Well, I appreciate all the value that provided and insights, and where can our audience learn and learn more about the farm and follow you on social media? Like, where can they find you?
Yeah. Instagram is the best place for both. It's at Big Rock SF, and then at Sonoma Hills Farm. So Hills plural, farm singular. Instagram's a great place, and then LinkedIn. We're on LinkedIn as well, and then of course standard websites and all that good stuff. But yeah, definitely, it's a beautiful, colorful, picturesque experience. So I like to look at the pretty pictures the most.
Well, I want to experience it in person, so I'll see you next week, and then
I can't wait to see you. It's been too long.
It has been too long. Yeah, it's gonna be fun. So have a wonderful evening. Say hi to the plants and the animals out there, and I'll catch you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Guillermo. Have a good afternoon, man.